Hello and welcome to another episode of the Happy Head podcast. Today I've got with me, I was going to say in the studio, but I don't have a bloody studio. I'm in a corner of my lounge. Some of these times, sometimes some of this stuff comes out of my head. I don't know where it comes from. But anyway, Tally Nothey, good morning to you. How are you doing, Tally?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. We're pleasure to be here.
It was really important that I pressed record because we started talking about stuff and you kind of got going to carry on.
I
And
was.
I actually had to stop you so we could actually start recording. So listen, first of all, tell us who you are, and then tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, right. So well, it's so hard, to describe who I am because I do so many things, but primarily I would say what my main focus is being a mum of an autistic young man who is now 18. I do a lot of marketing and I do a lot of hypnotherapy and stuff like that, but my focus now is my 18-year-old son and what's going to happen to him when I die.
Interesting subject. And when we spoke, kind of, as you know by now, everybody I have as a guest, I have like a quick sort of 15 to 30-minute chat with them beforehand. And we were talking about these kind of mega projects you've got
Yeah.
underway. Can you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, sure. So, I've been looking at, well, what's going to happen when I can't look after him anymore? And the options were scary because I've had to fight every day of his life since his diagnosis to get anything for him, from education to the right therapies to the right treatments to and choice was taken away from me from the moment the diagnosis was given. I couldn't choose what school I wanted. I couldn't choose anything. Everything was dictated to me because the local authority apparently know better than I do as to what is good for my son. And in actual fact, is it's just he comes now with a monetary value on him. He's not Taran Nothey. He is, 250,000 or whatever he's going to cost the local authority. So they sort of try and shoehorn kids into what they think is appropriate, but it's what is most cost effective. So I've seen how, because I also work and support a charity called Anna Kennedy Online, and we support families. So we sit and listen to what they've gone through and what they're going through. And the biggest fear for all of them is, after the age of either 18 or 25, they fall off the radar. You're not given any more support, or support is absolutely minimum. So you see kids either staying at home, getting into trouble. We see that our prisons and places like that are filled with people who are on the spectrum because they're just not supported anymore. So I looked at the options. So the options I had was for him to stay at home, was to go to a residential care home, or to live in assisted living. So my son is quite severe on the spectrum. So assisted living, I couldn't see working. And to get him into a really good care home, I would have to fight so hard and it would cost me so much money that it just didn't seem possible. And also, if at any time the local authority wanted to cut funding, they could pull him out at any time and move him elsewhere. So can you imagine, if I'm not here to support him when he's much older, that scares the living daylights out of me. Where are they going to put him if the funding runs out in our local authority? So I thought I've got to create something myself. And with every sentence that I spoke when I spoke about this, the term freedom to thrive kept coming up. That's what I want for everybody. It's the freedom to be the best that they can be, whatever that might be. And we want to give them that freedom to work out what they're good at, what they love doing, and give them more of that so that they have meaning and purpose in their lives. So the whole point was to create, not just, I mean, there's lots of little places set up by parents where, again, it's looked after. The kids are given things to do. They've got somewhere to stay. They have a social life as well, and it's all fantastic. But I wanted a bit more than that. I wanted to find a way of trying to be independent from government and local authority, because as soon as you have any input from local authority, they can come in and ruin everything that you've done, and try and take control. So I'm trying to build something that's different, and I'm collecting interesting people, and important people to help me on this project. So we're at the very early stages, and I'm already learning that I need to be more adaptable and I need to change. So we were talking earlier that I've got some important people that I've got onto the project now. So that's really really exciting for me.
Can you kind of outline in general terms the project?
Yeah, so what we're going to have is that one my original thought was that why should I have to let go, why do I have to be separated so far from my son, because a lot of care homes are miles away from family, so you're constantly worried about what's happening with your child, and you can't just rush over and go and see them. You can't, it's like a really, you have to think through, and plan to go and see your child. And ordinarily that's okay, but if you can't see how your child is being treated or whether they're getting everything that they need, again, you're still in that state of worry all the time. So I wanted to create a place where the families could live together. So we're going to have sort of family units. So you where everyone will live and support each other. So it's about bringing community back. So we all support each other. So it's not like high-rise flats. They're sort of eco-friendly houses, on a large plot of land. But then there's a central building where people like my son will live most of their time, so that there is a separation between family and where he will be. So he learns to be independent, and he's slowly learning to be without me. And as I myself and my husband get older, that gap between how often we see them slowly starts to get bigger as well, because he needs to learn to live without us, but he's going to be surrounded by people who are similar to him, and he's grown up in this community. So it takes a village to bring people up, and we seem to have lost this whole way of living. And I was brought up like that, being in the Asian community. We all supported each other, we supported our elderly. We made sure that they were looked after and they had the best that they can, and everybody was looked after, and it didn't matter whether it was my grandmother or there was a grandmother down the road. We all made sure that we supported each other. So but we don't have that now. We all seem to have our front doors locked and shut, and nobody can come in, and we hardly know who our neighbours are. So hopefully we have a place where it's not enforced, but we know the needs of everybody that lives there, and they're accepted. So we have that main house where he will live and be supported, and he will have a job. We will create jobs for everyone, so that he knows that Monday to Friday he can get up and there will be activities for him to do. Because I watch carers taking disabled people for walks all the time, and it's just sort of being taken from one place to another, taken to a park or to a bowling alley, or to the cinema. But that's about it. And then the rest of the time, I speak to parents, their kids are just on computers. But where I've learned from the school that my son's at the moment, which is called Prior's Court, is that they've put fantastic meaningful activities in place. And now my son is, he's got a delivery job within the school, which I never ever dreamt that he would do, because his diagnosis was so bad. But he's learnt, because he loves being on his bike, and they recognize that he loves being on his bike. So now he delivers around the whole 50 acres of this land, of where the houses are and the offices are. He goes around delivering their post and food and whatever, but he loves it, and that's his job. So it's about creating meaningful employment as well. And another organization that's going to be part of this is a group called Artistic, and it's run by a fabulous man called Colin Sugden. and he's a school teacher who had a group of people that he was teaching who were fabulous and amazing artists, but he knew that once they left the school, there was nothing for them. They wouldn't survive. And he actually left his job to mentor these guys. And now Artistic is growing. But, again, he's looking for what's the next step to supporting these guys who are now doing commercial projects as well. But they still need support because they're autistic or they have mental health issues. So they're going to be part of Freedom to Thrive as well. So the central to this community will be a place for artists to work and live and sell their artwork, perhaps possibly, teach other people how to do it. But again, they're not going to be pressured by the way outside society is, but they're going to be accepted, and hopefully their anxieties will be lower so that they're able to live better lives. Because I speak to a lot of them now, and people like my son, they live in constant high anxiety all the time because they're worried about all sorts of stuff. For my son, the anxiety it's caused by his autism, and he also has a condition called Fragile X, and he even struggles sometimes to go through a doorway because he doesn't know what's on the other side. So and so taking him out shopping or anything can be a real struggle because sometimes he just won't even go through a door. But if he's living in this community where he learns that it's safe, and we can take time to get him through a threshold, he will learn. But at the moment, the pressure and the looks that I get when he sort of is frozen, and he's a big guy built like a rugby player, and he just freezes and I can't move him. People are lacking patience out there now, and because he doesn't look disabled, he's not in a wheelchair, he doesn't, he's just a handsome young 18-year-old man, but they just don't get it. And as they get more anxious and rude sometimes, he gets more anxious, and that's when he gets aggressive, and that's when he can lash out, because he just can't cope with people saying come on, move on, or I've had some really nasty comments that he should be put down, or people like that shouldn't be allowed out. And you think, in this day and age, how does this happen? There are still people out there who dare to say things like that. And I can't change the world, I can't change the mindset of everybody out there, but I can possibly change it in a small plot of land somewhere in the UK, and hopefully show people how it can be done, so that hopefully that will have a ripple effect out, so people can see that this is the better way.
So essentially, what you're looking to do is to buy a decent plot of land and create a village which becomes a community centered around people
Yeah.
who with autism at various different levels.
Yeah.
Now, there's one thing I want to ask you to repeat before we were hit record. You mentioned that you'd been on another podcast or you'd been in a meeting and you'd met someone who
Yeah.
kind of put you very straight on something. Would you care to repeat what you
Yeah, and
said?
it's so amazing. It's sort of, I'm such a believer of, when you put it out there and you're open and you do, you start to attract the right people. And I was on a Dutch radio station, talking about autism and talking about the project Freedom to Thrive. And there were a couple of people on that talk. So the first one was an eminent, specialist in autism, Dr. Barry Brisson. But then from that, I met a lady called Ros Blackburn. Now, she's not on social media, but if you look her up, you'll find little documentaries about her all over the place. And so she's a very highly intelligent woman, extremely eloquent, but she's not able to look after herself. So she needs constant support to do everyday things like cooking, making sure that she washes, making sure that she, can understand paperwork. She's completely dyslexic. She can't read or write. But when you speak to her, you think, wow, she just literally blows your mind. And as I was saying before, is that she has no filters. So she will just tell you that you're wrong, or this is right, or this is, this is how it should be done. And she opened my eyes to quite a lot of things, which has changed the project. And so now I've brought her on board. So she's on board helping build this community, as is another amazing young guy called Paul Isaacs, who I've done quite a lot of podcasts and recordings with. He is just one of the, brain the size of a planet with regards to autism, and a very refreshing look at autism, because he can actually see it from my point of view as a mother, and how I feel. He really does understand, and he has that empathy, but he also sees the world through the eyes of my son. So things that I just didn't understand why he was doing certain things, Paul was, oh yeah, that's all right, he's only doing that because of whatever, because of the lights or because of this and whatever. And he's helped me make simple, reasonable adjustments either in the home or outside, that has revolutionized how my son behaves. And my son is completely different now to the way he was, simply because someone like Paul can come in and look at he just sits there and observes and just spends time with people, and then he will say, well, this is what he is. Because he believes that autism is like a collection of whole loads of different things. It's not. That's why when you meet one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. They are all different, and that's what makes it so complex and so difficult to understand. And everybody has their own sort of interpretation of what it is. But what Paul says, it's that each person is made up of a collection of different conditions, and when you put them all together, they present in a particular type of autism. And he's able to look at someone and say, well, they've got this, and this, and that's what makes that person up. So the whole project now, I am making sure that I have more autistic people help me design it than there are neurotypical people, because it's for them more than it is for us, and we need that balance. And when I look at a lot of other care homes and places like that, they very rarely have had someone like Roz or Paul design it for them. So we're looking at what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, and it's and things that Roz has said has literally, almost in some things, I have to rethink, because she was saying parents shouldn't be there, shouldn't be on this, in this village, because she was, and I thought, at first I thought, oh my god, my heart just sank, because the whole thing was about creating this community. And she said, have you noticed that when children or people are with their parents, they're very different to what they're like when they're not with their parents? And I thought, oh, that is so true, because every time I bring my son home for a weekend, he is nothing like what they describe at school. When you go to school and parents, even with my daughter, who's neurotypical, and you speak to the school and they tell me what she's like, and I think, seriously, that's not my daughter. She is not like that at home. So, and because my son has sort of perhaps the mental age of probably a 7-year-old, so having me that close all the time, is that going to work? So she is saying, what Roz is saying, that families should be about an hour away, but no further than an hour. So we're sort of like re-looking at the whole project now, because that I was in a long conversation with my son's school yesterday, and the woman was, she was saying, your son is just amazing. He is just a joy. And I sit and watch him sometimes, and how clever he is, and how he's able to do this and he's able to do that. And I'm thinking, when he comes home, he doesn't do anything. And because I've had this preconceived sort of ideas of what his previous school used to say about my son, that he's not able to do this, he's never doing this, he's never doing that, and that sort of stuck in my head. And I sort of do things for him at home because it's just what mothers do. And then you know, I think last week when he was at home, my husband just, he took control, and he just sort of said, Taryn, just do that. And he told me to leave. And he said, look, you go out, do your shopping, do whatever. And he just said to my son, and he didn't treat him in any special way. He said, just, I need you to do this. And when I came back, he'd done it. He'd done these things. He'd gone and had a shower, and he'd got himself dressed, and all of these things that his previous school had said he couldn't do. So the right environment is so important. So the school he's at now, they make sure that they're giving him these independent skills, and they're nurturing him, and they see him as an individual. So they're doing everything they can to find out what his passions are, and using those passions. So for him, it's going on his bike. And going on his bike, they've given him that delivery job, but that's also lowered his anxiety. And now he's able to knock on a door and wait for somebody to open it and actually say hello. Whereas before, that was an impossibility. But they have the patience to do that. So, I want to bring some of that into the community, and looking at how can we look at each person individually, and what can we do to make their lives better? What can we do to make them really enjoy their lives? And then for the parents to know that we're doing the best for them, and that their life is going to be meaningful and joyful, rather than you having to worry. So the whole thing about whether parents live in this village or not live on the village is now, my next step is how do we address that part?
So basically, when Roz said to you that it's not your project, it's your son's project, you were spot on.
Yeah. Exactly. And it was just it's just the way she said it as well. It wasn't sugar coated or hidden, or I have meetings with other people, local authorities, and everything, there's a hidden message somewhere. And I've lost trust, and I'm never quite sure. Everything's up to interpretation. Working with Paul and Roz, what you see is what you get. And when they say it, they mean it. It comes from the right place. And that, sometimes they say things which seem hurtful, but in actual fact they don't mean it. It's just like, why don't you think of it in this way? Why are you doing it like this? And this is what is better. And it's an absolute eye-opener. But I'm so grateful. That to have some people like that on board so early, rather than having designed it all and started looking for funding and then thinking, oh shit.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
I've woken up in
ideal community with the parents' homes here and the places in the middle, and Roz goes, "That's a piece of shit."
Yeah, she would have said that.
Them.
She would have. Oh my God! It's seriously, look this woman up, and she's been arrested so many times because people don't understand her. And because, the first time she got arrested, I think she'd fallen in love with a wall, something like that. You've got to watch the video to understand that she falls in love with inanimate objects, and real love. It's not just,
I think I've met and watched one of her things. But what I was about to say is that speaking directly for neurotypical people is a lost art. If more people spoke directly, there'd be no hidden agendas, no hidden meanings, no hidden whatever. And I think we'd get along a lot better, because people would just say what they meant and not try and sugarcoat it or use obscure words and phrases. Where saying what you mean and saying it outright and not worrying, because too many people worry about how people are going to accept the words they're about to say.
Yeah.
And whereas from what you said, Roz doesn't really give a monkey's what people think.
No, she doesn't. And it's weird. It was at first, you're not used to it. You're just really not used to it. But it doesn't take you long. But then readjusting back to talking to neurotypical people, it's like, oh, geez, this is hard work. Are they really saying that? Do they really mean that? And it's like, oh God, I can't. So I'm becoming a bit more like Roz, where I will just, because life is too short to sort of complicate things. Just say it as it is. And my husband's always been like that. He was the first person ever ever to say no to my mother for anything. Oh my God, when we got married, sort of like prior to that, sort of, I didn't realize this because obviously, I love my mum to bits and I'm used to her. But everybody, if she ever said anything, it was done. It was done. Then I got married, and my mum asked him to do something, or she wasn't happy with something that he had done, and he just said, "No, I'm not doing it. I'm not." And the look on her face, it was like there was silence, this ripple of silence in the room. And it was just my mother, it was like almost like, he punched her or something. And it took her probably, oh God, at least 2 years to get used to being told. Because my husband, he would just say things. He would just like, he always says, if you believe in something, just say it. Just you need to not sugarcoat things. And he said, how many times have you done things that you really didn't want to do, and you agree to things and you make your own life miserable, and then you're slagging off the other person. But if you'd right at the beginning said, no, I'm not doing it, or I don't agree with it, or I'm not the right person for this, how much easier would your life have been? And I've been one of these sort of crowd pleasers and yes people for too long, until I married my husband, and then meeting Roz took it to another level, where and it really is. I wish everybody could meet someone like Roz, because it would just show you how much time we waste. And how much effort we waste, and how much of our own lives we don't live because we're living it for other people or trying to keep other people happy. But she is happy because she does things that she wants to do, and she's not disrespectful. She just manages to find that balance of having a really happy and contented life despite everything that she goes through. But the only thing she worries about now is what happens to her later on as well, because when she's still, her mother is still alive, and she still has support staff, but she's still worried as well. And that's why she was attracted to this project, because she will be amongst like-minded people who understand her, and will be more supportive of her, and not look at her like as though she's a freak or something different. She is just Roz. So she's worried. There's a lot of worried people out there. So is, what can I do? And I have to do something, because I can't. It's just so stressful. The alternative is so stressful. There's only one other sort of care home that I like, and that's all the way in Lancashire, run by an organisation that I'm an ambassador for, called Home from Home Care. But I've seen parents have their funding cut when their kids are in this place. So they're happily been there for 10 years, and then all of a sudden the local authority says they're going to move their child, who might be sort of 50 now. And can you imagine, especially with conditions like autism, where change is really difficult, to take them out somewhere that they've been for 20 years and living happily, and then because of a funding issue they're moved. So that just scares me more than anything, because I know for my son, he would regress really badly. And if he's not given the right care, the right support, and the right people aren't there, that's you just don't know where he would go.
So I know this project's at the very early stages, but have you kind of scoped out costs and whatnot yet for this project?
Yeah, so I've got this guy who's looking into how, and I don't understand it, but he's looking at how we can. So I've already looked at a plot of land owned by this lady who can't use it for anything, so it's hers, and I think it's she's offering us sort of 40 acres, I think, so which is a decent sized plot of land. And one of the provisos is that on another field, she has a love of horses. And she says, did you know that the trees that we predominantly grow in the UK are harmful to our horses? I had no idea about that. But what she wants to do is, on one plot of land, is grow the trees that her horses will love and other horses will love. And that's fine, because that will provide jobs for our people, and we can work with, hopefully with the Forestry Commission or whatever, to make it into a business where we can grow trees, sell trees, and have a beautiful place for people to spend time as well. So the touch wood, that plot of land is sort of on the table for us. But the guy who's working with me, he used to build football stadiums, so he's got contacts in the building industry. So he's sort of working on that side. But everything has sort of been thrown up in the air with what Roz has said. So the central building will definitely still exist, where Taryn will learn to be independent and all of that kind of stuff. And then, say, for the higher functioning people who can sort of live as independently as they can, then we'll have houses for them. And then you've got artistic, then you've got sort of like the shops, and perhaps a restaurant, a cafe, those sort of places, and places of learning for them as well. So it's sort of mapped out, but it's constantly changing. And this guy, he's working on the financial side of it. So, but obviously, I think it's, as soon as we're ready and we start raising awareness, we're going to have to obviously do fundraisers and things like that, and have a whole department just dealing with fundraising. But that's the way it's done, crowdfunding and things like that. But
do you have a ballpark figure?
Oh, geez, I think we need, because the land we don't have to pay for. Just to start, we'll probably need about 5 million to start off with. But if we can, hopefully, we seem to be attracting people who know people who know people who are happy to do things, because it's almost like a legacy project for them as well. So hopefully we'll get quite a lot of the stuff for virtually nothing. I mean, that's sort of the way it's going. And then eventually it's going to be the fundraising and making these houses mortgage free as soon as possible, because I want little or no involvement with the local authority. And I know that they would step in and say, well, here's money to do this, but everything comes with a price. They give us that, but what do you want in return? That's the problem. That's my biggest worry. So I'm speaking to people and looking at an alternative way of funding this place and making it as private as possible. And I'm speaking to a woman later today who's already set something up, and her son was at the same school that my son is at the moment. And when he finished at 25, they had a farm. So they've already set things up, but they did it in conjunction with their local authority, and they've been through hell, and it's been touch and go all this time. And so obviously I'm going to try and learn from what she's going to say, and what happened, what went wrong, and why is it a problem to work with local authorities, and see what we can do. And it's about being almost breaking the mold and doing it in a completely different way. How can we be different? We've got that opportunity now, because nothing is set in stone. And we're, I'm not saying this is the way it has to be. I have a concept and I know what I want, which is the safety, security, happiness of my son for the rest of his days, and people like him, to be in a place where people are accepted. But how can we do it so that he can stay there for the rest of his life, and all the others can stay there for the rest of their lives?
Is one of your kind of financial goals to make this entire community self-funding, self-financing over time?
Yeah.
But he talks about jobs, he talks about the trees, he talks about the art group and what have you.
Yeah.
They're all sort of potential income generators, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. We're going to try and put in as much income generating stuff in there, as long as it doesn't disrupt the lives of the people living there. But there's loads of things, we can run training from there on how community needs to be in autism training. And having met now Dr. Barry Prezant, who was fascinated by the project and wants to learn more, and so having him on board, I'm trying to collect people like him who have a reputation that comes with them, to say, how can we do this? What can we do? So even if we ran courses and things, that would bring some money in when they're led by someone like him, and like-minded people. So there's loads of things that we're looking at, but we're open to ideas. And that's the thing, is that what can we do? We need these entrepreneurs, we need these big blue sky thinkers who can say, well, have you thought about this? Even if it's looking at crypto, looking at whatever, I don't mind. I really want to look at everything. If there is something that we can do to get this project going and getting it self-sufficient, then that's fine. I mean, we'll probably have to have an innovation team on board to keep this fresh, to keep it, looking at where the money is coming from. So, so we'll have, hopefully, sort of autistic people who thrive in those sort of environments, and they're supported there, who outside struggle to find jobs, but they can give so much, they can offer so much to industry. And I think there was something on the news this morning, which I'm going to have to rewatch, where they were saying there is so much money in disability, because people, either they don't know where to spend it. They can't spend it in a lot of places. So there's a lot of money, that they have spending power, but they also have the knowledge. But a lot of organizations don't have they're scared of hiring people with autism because they're different and sometimes unpredictable or whatever. But here, that's what we want. We want more people like that, and we want to give them that space so they can, dream, and we can help them, sort of bring to life whatever. So they might come up with some crazy ideas, but that's what I want. I want crazy ideas. It's these crazy ideas that can turn into something absolutely amazing.
How can people that are listening and watching Tally help?
Well, firstly, just follow me. I haven't set up the social media side, because it all sort of, I thought I knew what I wanted, and then Roz came, and now sort of things are sort of evolving and changing. But if you just follow me on social media, and come up with ideas, and let me know what your ideas are, and if you want to help, let me know, because I'm building the team. I'm building, building this little, not this little, this huge project. Now I need people to cover things like, people who understand finance, some people that understand safeguarding, people that understand, environmental factors, because we want it to be as eco-friendly as possible. We need autism experts there. We need people on the spectrum who can help out on this. And we need families as well who are struggling and worried about what the next step is, to be part of this. And I want to know what their ideas are, because they're probably sitting there like me thinking, I wish there was this, I wish this was available. Well, let's put this all together and let's see what we can build. And what I want to do is create the blueprint of our first Freedom to Thrive community, and then build it all over the place. Because at the moment, let's say, for example, if my son goes into care, he would cost the local authority, and I think he probably cost the local authority now probably just under $250,000 a year to be supported. So can you imagine putting all of this, putting people like that into this community, which isn't going to cost the local authority anything? We'd be saving the local authority a fortune, where that money can then be redirected and to support people who can't be in there, or have different needs or different areas or whatever. So we're saving a lot of money as well. So it's like a double-edged sword. I want the local authority involved in the sense that, we'd be saving them money. So I want something in return. But on the other hand, I don't want them ruining it either.
No, I understand that, because the thing is, I know nothing about politics, but local authorities are kind of like given money and given budgets, and then the budgets and the money have to be just in change, which is probably why, as you said, they're happy to fund somebody for X number of years, and then
Yeah.
something changes in their world, and obviously then that kind of cascades down.
Yeah.
But that's a subject for another day. Listen, Tally, it's been fascinating chatting with you, and you give me a couple of names of people. I really want to get Roz on the show. It should be she'd come and
Oh,
talk to.
she will come. She will. She
I
will
need you to give me a
definitely.
connection.
I will do. Yeah.
Last words before we shut the show today.
Oh my word. Everyone should have the freedom to thrive. Everyone should be given the opportunity to be the best they can be and to live happily and safely till the end, regardless of who you are, what your abilities are. And I want to give that to people who at the moment don't have that.
That is a brilliant way to end today. Listen, Tally, I really appreciate your time. I wish you the best luck with their project,
Thank
and thank you very
you.
much.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye bye.
That's the end today, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye now.